This podcast is powered by As Always Entertainment. If you enjoy this content, consider becoming a patron over on patreon.com/asalways. Other than to support this show for just $1 a month or more, you get access to over 50 exclusive episodes of the Kill Connor Clubhouse podcast that release every week the Kill Connor Club podcast isn't on. You also get a week's early access to the Spoilercast show, The Cinema Room, and plenty of cool perks such as being part of polls for future videos on our channels, as well as other early access material. With that said, please enjoy the podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Room podcast, the Spoilercast podcast where we talk about movies, video games and TV show seasons and spoil the shit out of them. So if you haven't seen whatever we're talking about this episode, you better click off. I am one of your hosts, Tyler, joined as always by James.
As always, how's it going?
Very well, my friend, very well. How are you?
Alright, pretty good, other than being incredibly tired. I'm alright.
Yep.
But I think I'll wake up during this podcast. I'm excited.
I'm excited too, and we'll get into why you're tired in just a moment. But obviously, we've got to thank the great people over at patreon.com/as always. They're making this show happen. It wouldn't happen without them. So our Patreon producers, we've got to shout them out. That's King Richard III, Smexy Dork, Elstico91, HPass12, I got big shoes, Seth, and Josh Devlier. So this episode of the Cinema Room podcast, ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking about El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie, which is a movie following Jesse Pinkman, following the events of the TV show Breaking Bad. So I'm excited to talk about this. There's a lot to discuss, especially with I feel like we're going to have very different perspectives, not on the movie or anything, but of the fact that I just, after haven't watched Breaking Bad in years, and just watched the movie as is. And James watched the whole series of Breaking Bad.
I did.
And then watched the movie. So here we are. I'm excited to get into it. But of course, once again, if you like what you're listening to here and you want to hear more, head over to patreon.com/as always, where you get exclusive access to the Clubhouse podcast. It's the best podcast on the internet for just $1 a month. Or, as well, you get a week's early access to this podcast, the Cinema Room podcast, for just that $1 a month, plus plenty of other perks and rewards, including for $5 up. You get read on the Patreon list, and we're going to do that right now. So thanks to all the sweet vintage lads on this list. That is King Richard III, Smexy Dork, Elstico91, HPass12, I got big shoes, Seth, Josh Devlier, Ballsack47, Damian, Billy the Team Tynamite Captain Robertson, Tman Travis, SuperTuberEddie, Baby Boy, KEMOSABE Gamer, aka my best friend Toby, Casey Wood, Pink Flame 313, Adam Sundling, Alfie Rowsell, Jamie Brown, Jesper Olsen, Lumistrad, DIDDLOTIC, Mario 5380, Lives in a Society, The Creed, Fat Fuck Cuck, Brendon Overlord, RAVJAI, Ikraik, Oscar, Benedict Parker Returns, Jimli, James and Lad, Connor Durose Bully in the Alley, Zahir the FAT Gamer, Max H. Gene, Zeek Collins Lives in a Society. One of you has to change that because Zeek saying in his name he's like Zeek Collins Lives in a Society, and then you've got the Logan Paul guy who just said Lives in a Society. So I feel like the Logan Paul guy needs to change it, or Zeke needs to change it, or both of you, to be honest, because it's over now. The Joker thing's over. Anyway, Son of a Bitch, Ogeaidogo, George, Noah Watch, FuriousCoco, Nick Miller, TheACMJS, Travanovsky, McZed, Kassassin, Kyle S. Jaws, Marcus Blackburn, Emil Katborg, Joshua Mori, Ginko Swag, Bass the Bass, Ashton the Lad, Amir the Synth Potato, Yazen Al-Jahwari, the Sexy Boi Smith, Joe aka Founder Scarab, Iron Man to the Dads, Derriday, Alfie Rowsell, Brian Ford, Casper, Fishy, and Andrew Martinez. Thanks to Sweet Ventures Lads for helping power this podcast.
Epic.
Oh, Jesus, that was fucking challenging. That list is something else. Alrighty, James. El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie. You've seen it.
I have seen it.
You've also seen the entire series of Breaking Bad.
Yes.
Because I guess that's something people would do.
Yeah. Well, look, I was encouraged to do it last time on episode 110.
No.
I was like,
no.
Shall I do it?
Told you not to do it.
And you said no, but George and Ethan were both like, yeah, do it. And I couldn't ignore that, so I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a go.
That's ridiculous. Okay.
To be fair, right, if I'd have bothered to structure it properly and can watch a certain amount of episodes a day, divide it up by the amount of time, I worked it out. I only would have had to watch 4 episodes a day, which would have been fine. That sounds reasonable to me. But I sort of slacked off a lot at the beginning, so by the time I got to the last few days, I ended up watching 7 to 10 episodes a day. And honestly, it was horrible. But also, I think it gives you somewhat of a different perspective, so I suppose that's nice. But I feel a sense of pride and satisfaction in my work, so I think it's good in the end.
All right, well, I mean, got to ask you, what did you think of El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was really, really good. Tied up a lot of loose ends, gave us a lot of callbacks, so many returning characters from the show, which was really great to see everybody, and just revisiting, the Breaking Bad world and the Breaking Bad story in a way that felt very true to the show, whilst also, updating it a little bit for 2019. But I absolutely loved it. I thought it was bloody great.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you. I mean, having not watched the show for at least 2-3 years since I've seen an episode of Breaking Bad, let alone watch the whole show. I don't think I've watched it at least the last season since probably a year after it aired. I might have rewatched it like a year later, but that's it. So it's been quite a number of years. And then I just chucked it on. But especially with shows I love, like Breaking Bad, like I remember things pretty fucking well. So I didn't feel like there was anything I missed, except there's maybe one or two things that we'll talk about deep into this podcast. But everything else, I was like, oh yeah, of course. No, I remember this. Of course, you don't really forget the characters. And they did a good job of reminding you of who they were pretty quick. If you kind of like, wait, who's that again? Oh yeah, right. Okay. That's why he's here and doing that. Like the guy in the vacuum shop. I was like, for a second, I'm like, I forget, he's important, but I forget why. And then as soon as he pulls out the map, I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Of course I know who that is. Again, we'll get into all that as we go on, but I didn't feel like I lacked out. This movie didn't try to be some big budget film version of the TV show. It was just felt like it was the next episode of Breaking Bad, but it was a 2-hour episode. That's all it felt like. It felt like it was the next episode of Breaking Bad after the final episode that really focused on Jesse Pinkman, who really took a back seat at the end of the show. It was really Walter White's ending, and Jesse was a part of that ending, but he didn't get his own sort of end that was really satisfying, whereas Walter did. So this just felt like it got to be Jesse's end, whilst also being a bit fan servicey and calling back to things, but not in a bad way, in a way that really made sense and felt true to the story. And having these returning characters with flashbacks and stuff, and it was really, really good. I loved the movie. The movie. What were you expecting, James? Like going into it, what did you want from it?
That's a good question. I don't know, because I think I watched the first teaser trailer for it, and I was like, well, obviously I'm going to watch this movie, so I didn't watch anything else they put out, any other trailers. I don't know what any of the trailers showed, so... They didn't show a lot, man. Like, they kind of show... They didn't even show Jesse for ages. Like, you didn't... I was like, Is Jesse in this, or is it like... You've seen the first teaser, they're talking about Jesse. I'm like, is Jesse fucking in this, or is he fucking... Is it going to be about the police trying to find him? Like, is it just like a spin-off movie, or is it actually a Breaking Bad movie? But then you realize, like, the trailer just before the movie came out, you're like, oh, no, this is all about Jesse. Okay.
Because they did, like, a trailer where they did all of Jesse's highlights from Breaking Bad, but they showed no new footage. I was like, okay, again, not sure what this is. And then that last trailer, they had no audio from the show. They just played a song and had clips from the show. So it was really eerily silent because there was no audio in any way that came from the movie itself. So that was sort of like the build up to it. And I'm like, okay, I'm not sure what to say from it. I'm not sure how big this is going. I think I assumed, because it was like, it's a Breaking Bad movie, I'm like, right, okay, this is gonna be all these major things happen. It's gonna be really big, but it wasn't. It really felt, and even though I kind of was like excited for all these big things to happen, just because they didn't, I wasn't disappointed, because it just felt like I was watching an episode of Breaking Bad, just like in 4K and really like, well, like the only thing that felt high budget was like the camera, obviously, the quality just looked amazing. But other than that, they didn't have any like fucking explosions and shit that were any different that they wouldn't have in the show. They didn't have any big set pieces that they wouldn't have just had in the show. That nothing felt out of place from this movie to the show at all. It just felt like it continued straight on. Did you feel the same?
Yeah, definitely. That's what I think that was so great. Like, it didn't feel like switching from one thing to another. Like, after spending so much time watching Breaking Bad, it really just felt like it perfectly flowed into this movie that just felt like an extension, almost like a director's cut like of the ending, like an extended version or whatever. You know, getting to see what happened to Jesse and everything, and it flowed so well, and it felt just like it should do. I don't really have any issues with that side of it. Like, I can't think of anything really wrong with it to go, oh, this didn't feel quite like the show. I think it was perfectly like the show, and I think that's what made it so good.
The only thing that's an obvious, like, disconnect is just simply for the amount of years between the making of this movie and the show ending, because they're doing flashbacks, and some characters you're like, well, Todd, you are fat as fuck.
Oh
and old
my
as
god,
fuck,
that
right?
was the one. Like, everyone else was pretty good, pretty close, almost exactly the same. But with Todd, it's like, you don't really look the same, especially after just watching the show and then watching the movie straight after. It's like,
and I noticed, and I hadn't fucking seen him in ages, and I was just like, oh, Todd's let himself fucking go since Breaking Bad. I haven't been working much since then.
It's weird as well, because he was like a kid in the show. Like, he wasn't a kid, like,
he was young.
He was an adult, but like, he was like he was like a young adult. But in this, he just looks like a middle-aged man. It's really, it's funny.
And it hasn't been that many years that you'd think is a big jump,
like
but it really
6
looked
years,
like,
right?
Yeah, he just didn't look after himself at all.
No, not at all.
That was strange. Very strange. So the movie starts off, like, to let's take a deep dive into it, I guess. But the movie starts off, you get a scene with Mike and Jesse, and it's the scene before. But again, any of these flashbacks, they take place in things we've seen, but they're not scenes that we saw.
Yeah.
So this is a conversation between Mike and Jesse, where they explain, or they're talking about what they're going to do when they get out, sort of thing. And what they're going to do next, and that's when they sort of establish this Alaska sort of thing at the end. You know, like, Jesse asked Mike, "What would you do if you were me?" You know, because Mike's just like, "I'm going to spend on what I was spending on." Is his granddaughter or is it his daughter? I forget.
It's his granddaughter.
Granddaughter, yeah. He's going to get the money to his granddaughter. That's all it's about. Where Jesse's, what would you do if you were me? Where do you have fresh start? And he says Alaska. You know, it's the last frontier. The last, you can be anybody there. So it just kind of sets that up. Now, I actually will say, when we get to the end, that there's two scenes that I would switch around, and it's that one and another one. In terms of, like, if I was editing the movie, I would switch the two scenes.
Okay.
Because I felt like, I'll explain why later. Well, when we get to the end. Because I'd put this at the end and a thing at the end, a flashback at the end, at the start, if it were me. But we'll get there. Then we just, like, jump in to Jesse driving away. Literally, the moment the show ended, we pick right up from there. I guess watching it for you, how did that feel? Going into it straight away? Yeah,
it was really cool. It was like finishing the final episode. You see Jesse escape, you see Walt die, and then going into the movie, it opens. Obviously, you got the flashback, but then you're straight back into it, exactly where we left off. And I think it was really nice after watching the whole show through. It really just picks up where you left off and throws you straight back into it, which is really cool, because it gets you right into it. Because it's the biggest question, I suppose, after the end of it is like, what did happen to Jesse? It's like, yeah, sure, he escaped, but like, what happened? And it just throws you straight into that. And it's like, you just straight back to it again with these characters, and it just feels like Breaking Bad. It was really cool.
I love seeing, because when he escapes, he goes back to his only two real friends, other than Walter. I forget their fucking names because I haven't watched the show.
Badger and Skinny Pete.
Yeah, Badger and Skinny Pete. And you forget how likable those nitwits are.
Yeah.
Like, they're idiots, but fuck, they look after Jesse. Especially in this moment, because it's almost a bit of a character arc for them, for being a bit hopeless throughout the show, and just being kind of useless in a lot of ways. But in this, they really pay back stuff Jesse did for them and everything they've been through as characters in the show as well, which is cool to see.
Yeah.
And one of the big things that I just loved is when Jesse's like, "Why are you doing this for me?" To Skinny Pete is the one with the beanie. Yeah, he's the one that wears beanie.
Yeah, the skinny one.
And he goes like, "Fuck, Jesse, you're my hero."
Yeah.
And it's like,
That was
oh
really
shit.
nice.
It is that nice moment, but they're also like a bit socially fucking awkward about it because, like, they're like watching the news, and obviously on the news at the time, they've got that this massacre happened and Walter White's died, but they assume they liberated a prisoner that's Jesse Pinkman, and his friend's like, is it true they kept you in a cage? Like, they're asking him before he had a shower?
Yeah.
And it's just like, hey, guys, maybe you don't fucking ask him about it, huh?
Yeah.
In that moment. But even just, like, he's having that shower, and he has the flashback to, like, getting sprayed and doused with water and stuff, and you just really see, like, he's suffering from PTSD.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing about this. Like, he's gone through so much, and he's suffering from PTSD. You know what? I just want to say, Aaron Paul, like, I don't think Aaron Paul's the best fucking actor of all time or anything. But him as Jesse Pinkman, it's such a fucking incredible performance in this movie as well. Good. He has not lost a step from Jesse Pinkman in all these years off. Like, it's crazy, because I feel like when you watch him in other movies, I'm like, I don't think he's all that good or anything. But when it comes to playing Jesse, I don't know what it is. Like, he just knows that character so fucking well that he was able to just dive right into him from beginning to end with this movie, and it felt like such a deep performance from Aaron Paul. I don't know.
Yeah, it was really
at least
good.
I think so.
Yeah, it was really good. And talking about the PTSD as well, something that I liked that they went into that, because I remember watching season 5, and I mean, Jesse goes through some shit through the entirety of the show.
Yeah,
and I was
especially
thinking,
in the second half.
Like, this guy must be fucked up. Like, this poor fucking guy that's been, dragged down and been fucked about by Walter for such a long time, and, now he's been imprisoned, and, like, he's been through so much shit. Like, he must be fucked up. So the fact that they went into that and explored that a little bit as well was nice. It, gave a bit more depth to what he'd been through, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The flashbacks were such a big part of it. Like, it felt like they were trying to bring back some old characters for the sake of the movie, but they did feed into the plot a lot, and also into to Jesse's sort of character. And I guess they also are trying to remind you of stuff too. Like, they do treat it as if, like, hey guys, you probably haven't seen Breaking Bad in a few years.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure you remember everything that happened. And the thing I love about El Camino as well is it's fucking shot so exactly like
it is
Breaking Bad. Like, the things I love about Breaking Bad, the way they do point of view shots and tracking shots, and the way they do scale, everything, like, the way it's shot is fucking so much like Breaking Bad, just on a little bit of a higher budget, like that Netflix budget. It's so awesome.
Yeah, that's something I noticed immediately. I was like, I wonder if they're going to do those same camera angles, because there's a lot of unique things that it does that you don't see in a lot of shows. Specifically, like, when you get those point of view shots and things, and, like, cameras just being attached to random objects and stuff as it's moving. And they did that a lot in the movie, and it just felt like Breaking Bad. Like, obviously all the characters as well, but the way that it was filmed, it felt just like it. Which, I mean, it seems like a lot of care went into it to making this feel like a true extension to the show. And not harming it and enhancing it in a way.
Yeah, well, I listened to interviews with Aaron Paul and Vince Gilligan, and as soon as Vince Gilligan's attached to it, he loves those characters so much. He loves that show so much, to the fact that he really wanted to make this movie. Years after, he was still attached, and he still had something he wanted to say about it. Like, that's how much he loves it. He hadn't given up on the show. So many creators and writers and actors, they move on from things, even really special projects. They just kind of move on. And when people are like, you ever going to do a follow-up, you ever do a movie or a spin-off or anything? Like, no, that's over. That's for then. But Vince is like, yeah, fuck that. Like, we've still got things to say, and I love it so much. I do want to revisit it. I want to bring the gang back together. I want to film it the same way. I want to have that moment again. And it did feel like watching it felt like they loved making it.
Yeah.
Like, they all had a blast getting back together and doing what they're doing, being in Albuquerque and having the cast back and the crew similar as well. Like, it just, you can tell they love doing it as well, which is really special. Really special, I think.
Yeah.
what part of the movie did we get up to?
Pretty
I'm
much
just
the intro, right? Where he's just
yeah.
back with
Oh
his
yeah.
mates.
Well, I was saying that. Oh yeah. So Vince Gilligan and Aaron Paul. That I saw an interview in where they asked Aaron. They're like, "When's the first time he read the script?" And he said, "I was sitting on Vince's couch and he handed me the script and I just sat there and read through the whole thing in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I finished, I just closed and just thanked him and said, you know, what a fucking genius he is."
Oh, that's good.
Like I think they were so psyched to get back together and do this. It's so cool to see.
Yeah, it really is.
It really, I can't state enough how much it felt like a grounded episode. There was nothing big or major that just kept happening. They had those tense building moments, and something Breaking Bad does so well is that everything's. It's always the worry about getting caught. That's what the tension of Breaking Bad is, because they are this you know, Walter's identity, that mystery and him keeping it a secret was the biggest part of the tension of the show. And then after they find out the tension is him getting caught, now that he's dead, it's like, where's the tension? Breaking Bad is a show built around tension.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, Jesse's on the run straight away. So like, again, they're keeping the premise of this show intact. Without that tension, Breaking Bad doesn't work. This movie doesn't work. But it's always about not getting caught from the start of the show to the end of the show. It's in that big way, in that big theme, in that big trope, it's exactly the same as Breaking Bad, which it had to be to really work.
Yeah, it was done very well. There was a few moments that were done really well with tension and everything, with Jesse sneaking around and stuff, and it felt just like Breaking Bad. That was something I noticed straight away. Was, you know, it just felt everything. It just felt like Breaking Bad, and that the way they built tension and everything. Yeah, it was spot on.
It made me really miss the show as well. Like, I was just like, fuck.
Yeah, well, I definitely miss the show now. It's been my life.
Yeah,
it's consumed me. I feel like I'm living it, and now
yeah, I know
it's gone.
I told you, man, it's unhealthy that you do that, because you start living other people's lives in your own head,
and
then they die, and then you're literally mourning something that doesn't exist, and it really fucks with your psyche, and I don't like that you did that, and that's why I told you not to do it.
That meme with Joaquin Phoenix, like that screen cap from the Joker where someone's just captioned it, "I'm going to become the Joker," that's me now.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna have to start cooking meth. I'm gonna have to do it because I can't live without this.
Well, you can start a Korean wings place.
Exactly.
And
we
then
can
just
launder
lace
money
it
through that as well. It's perfect.
Well, yeah. Well, you lace the wing sauce with like meth, and it like the place that I eat my wings at does, because it has to be coated in like cocaine or fucking crack or something, because I'm addicted to those wings.
Yeah, see, that's it.
So just do that. Yeah, I'd say.
But they're competition.
That's what I would do.
I'm gonna have to take them out.
No, they're not. They're on the other side of the world, bro. Why would that be a thing?
Because I just need to cover all my bases, alright? I want to be the only drug-related wings place in the world. And I'm going to be the best at it. That's my goal. I got to have a goal. I got to aim high. I'm going to give it a shot.
Right. I see.
Just don't tell anybody, alright?
No, okay, I won't tell anybody. Yeah, no,
Thank
I
you.
swear to God.
No,
I swear to God, I'll keep that to myself. But back to El Camino.
Yes.
Did you think there was too many Todd flashbacks?
Maybe a little bit. I think I would have liked to have focused a little bit more on the present day stuff, purely because we know what happens to Todd. It's like I get the reason they did it. It's for character stuff, and it's also to remind you of things to push forward Jesse's character that like from present day. But at the same time, they did do it a lot, and they did sometimes last a while. And the story, to me, it was like, it's not that interesting of like a storyline that we're following here with the flashbacks with Todd, because we know Todd dies and we know Jesse escapes. So I feel like those maybe were more to remind people of particular things, and to put, like, it was more character stuff than anything. But maybe, I don't know. I mean,
it felt more like to move. I did at times, especially because I didn't feel like it was that very much about character. Mm-hmm. It felt like it was more about just moving the plot forward, right? Like, he didn't learn anything about himself from those flashbacks. He learnt plot points. Like, it was just moving story forward. And I felt like you didn't need all of them. Like, you needed most of them, but I felt like there were bits you could have kind of like, we didn't have, I don't know. That's just how I felt. That was the only flashbacks I thought were unnecessary. But there's one thing you kind of knew, which was like, you didn't know when, but you knew you were going to see a flashback of Walter.
Yeah, I was expecting
right,
it.
like that's, and we're going to get to it, but like that's something kind of like you knew, and that like you want to save that to the end.
Mm-hmm.
You sort of knew that was sort of coming though. Did you think that, or were you like, oh, there's not going to be Walter in this at all?
Well, I thought he would be in it in some capacity, but I thought what might be likely is because Jesse was having these like PTSD moments and seeing things, like when he was laying down on the bed, he like looked up at the ceiling and saw the cage that he was locked in. I thought maybe he would have some form of like, I don't know, PTSD hallucination or something of like talking to Walter, because Walter by the end had tormented him a lot. I thought maybe he'd have like a sort of internal dialogue with him that we'd see represented on screen.
Yeah, see, that's what I think. I thought that before I watched the movie. That's what I was predicting.
Mm-hmm.
But because there were so many flashbacks in the movie, I was like, they're just going to do a flashback.
Mm-hmm.
I think I hoped it would be a hallucination.
Yeah.
But I thought, no, they're just going to do a flashback because they've done so many.
See, I like what
they did. It would be a bit weird to have hallucinations, because I feel like if you have an hallucination of Walter, you've got to have him throughout the whole movie from start to finish.
Yeah.
He can't just show up at one moment. It's like, why?
Yeah.
Whereas if he's seeing Walter all the time, that makes sense.
Yeah. See, that could have been a cool way to do it, but also, I don't know if it would have felt as much like Breaking Bad, because that would have been very out of, I don't know, it doesn't feel like something that the show would do. Although it would have been really cool, and we could have also seen that, the darker side of Walt that he sort of became by the end of the show. But I think
at least how Jesse saw him.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. You didn't need it. I'm just saying, but if you did it, I feel like that's how you would have to do it.
Yeah, but I think ultimately what they did is probably better, because I feel like it served the movie in feeling a lot more like the show. In like a grounded sense, and also it was just sort of, it was a nice scene, because by the end of the show, Walt and Jesse hate each other, and it was nice to see them together again, just sort of being friends, which was, their chemistry is something that I loved about the early seasons of the show, was them two together, the way that they were with each other, and that was really nice. And seeing that scene that happened, that they talk about, where they're like, oh, we'll get a hotel and whatever, after they've been out cooking in the desert or whatever, and we get to see that in the movie, which was nice. I think ultimately what they did with it was a lot better than having hallucinations and having like Walt tormenting him from the inside, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree, because it wasn't really about that at all. Like, the movie was about sort of redemption for Jesse, not in the sense of redeeming himself to the rest of the characters of the world of Breaking Bad, redeeming himself for him.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it was a self-redemption, to be okay again, to be able to move on, to be able to, live his own life by his rules, by his decisions, not by what everyone else has kind of forced him into.
Yeah.
One big part, like, in section of the movie, is Todd's apartment.
Mm-hmm.
From the flashbacks of like them moving this old lady around because they're trying to establish that there's money in the house, and they're trying to find the money. Now, because I hadn't seen the fucking show in so long, these two cops that come out, I didn't notice anything, right? But two of the cops are they're not actually cops, right? Like, they're after Todd's money as well, and they're just pretending to be. Did you recognize one of those characters?
No.
Did you know straight away that you're like, oh, he's not a cop?
No, not at all. I don't even know if were they in the show, because I don't remember.
Yeah, one of them was, like, the short hair main one was.
Oh, really? No.
Yeah, I recognized.
I didn't remember.
Man, maybe I'm wrong. I thought I recognized him.
I don't know. I assume he would have been a background character if he was.
Yeah.
Because I didn't recognize him.
One of my favorite shots, because I'm skimming through the show right now, is you know what? I've decided it's actually my favorite fucking shot of the whole show, of the whole movie. It's Todd singing in the car driving down the road.
Really?
I fucking laughed so much. I don't know what it is about it. I just like, it's such a Todd thing to do, because he's such a fucked up piece of shit.
Yeah.
And then he's like tooting the horn, like, but he's also such an idiot. Like he's like a dumb child, because he's even telling the truck to toot. You know, the truck drives past and he's tooting his fucking hand to tell him the truck to toot his horn. And then you've just got like, it's like he lives in two different realities, or he doesn't realize what he's doing is wrong, because he's like playing this innocent like reality in his life, and like thinks he's like friends with Jesse. Like he treats Jesse like it's his mate. But I'm like, he's your fucking prisoner, and you've got him in the back of the car, hiding and lying down, tormented, and he's just singing this like chill song and waving his hand out the window.
Yeah,
like, I don't know why. I just fucking loved that shot. I just started laughing, like, that's such a fucking Todd thing.
Yeah.
Because I did always love Todd's character. He was always a major character of the show. I liked that he was in it.
Yeah.
A lot. This just might have been a little too much. Like, especially the scene where Jesse almost escapes. I don't think we really needed that.
Yeah.
You know, when he pulls out the gun and Todd talks him down, it's like, well, we know he doesn't escape, though.
Yeah. I don't know what that was for, unless it was just to show and remind how fucking, like, fucked up Jesse was.
But we already kind of... I feel like we got enough of it, that's all. I feel like we didn't need that. But it's not a lot. Like, you're looking through it, there's not really much I could name that you could cut. That's about it. Everything else was, I guess, pretty necessary just for the plot.
Yeah. Sure.
But, I mean, that's just how I felt anyway. But after he, you know, you have the scene with the cops / not cops, and they split the money around, and Jesse's always had that, like, survival instinct. Like, he's always been a survivor. And in some ways, he's kind of been, like, a bit of a coward in that way, or come across as a coward, like when he pulls out the gun and then he kind of gives up. He kind of submits when one of them pulls out the gun, and it's like they're convincing him there's 8 cops outside or whatever, and then he kind of gives up. But then he finds a way to survive. He finds a way to split the money, and I feel like he got a bit more courageous, a bit ballsier in this movie, and that's like the character development that I noticed there.
Yeah, I agree.
Now we go straight to the vacuum store, where the guy that, you know, pretty much if you pay him $125,000, he'll find you a new life somewhere, secretly, new identity, everything like that. He'll sort it all out. That is one of my favorite scenes, like their sort of exchange in the store. Yeah, and when they're in there, I was kind of like, oh, wait, who the fuck's that guy again? I'm like, oh, right, okay, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
You don't really see much with Jesse in the show. It's mostly with Walter. What do you think of the scene? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I liked it. I mean, I liked that it was like again, another like familiar thing from Breaking Bad with that bloke, that character, and the location, which was nice. But yeah, like, I like the scene. I don't think it stood out to me as anything super special, but like, it was nice, I guess.
It was nice, I guess. I don't know. I thought this was one of my favorite scenes.
How come?
I just loved like the exchange, the desperation, and him trying to like. I just kind of like this guy's character. He just refused to. Jesse thought he outsmarted him. He's like, I know you can't hang out up on a 911 call. That makes down the line. Blah blah blah. And it's like, oh, gotta like that response time. Like that whole exchange is really good. But then he didn't rat him out or anything. He just, you know. He was just an unwavering guy, the exact type of person that would do that. But unwavering is in, I don't care if you're $2,000 short. I don't care if you have $248,000. If it's not $250, I'm not fucking helping you. But then Jesse tricks his parents. He gets their gun from their house, and he has that nice moment, like sort of like telling his parents, "Look, it's not your fault." That was a big moment. But probably I guess would be the climax of the movie was where he goes and confronts these cops, not cops, at their facility to get the rest of their money. Because he needs $2,000, and he goes and he just asks them. It's like, but then he has the flashback to this guy and how he knows him, and this guy built like the chains and the chain system that he was on when he was cooking the meth.
Yeah.
But he walks in, he's just like, I'm just sitting here asking for $2,000, and then there's a big argument, and these guys are all coked up and shit. So he's like, all right, let's have a duel. You know, Breaking Bad's a very, like, in a lot of ways has that, being in Albuquerque, a Western sort of feel in some ways.
Yeah, it's always felt a little bit Red Dead Redemption to me. Like, rewatching it back, I'm like, there's a lot of similarities between, like, Red Dead Redemption. In story and in the way it is.
It's funny, like, two of my favourite shows are very, like, Western-y and like Red Dead. Like, Sons of Anarchy and Breaking Bad are both very much like that. In different ways, they're both like it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because they were both on at the same time. They both pretty much finished the same year and ran the same length of time. And, like, I feel like the peak of me watching television and good TV shows was during that period. It was like Game of Thrones was, like, in its early seasons. Breaking Bad was on TV. Sons of Anarchy was on TV. So it's kind of cool, like... Game of Thrones still sort of, well, it's ended now, but it was still going up until now. Breaking Bad's got a movie. Sons of Anarchy has a sequel show. Like, it's kind of cool to have those things still around, and to have Breaking Bad come back with this. But in this scene, I've got to say, it felt like Jesse finally harnessed Walter White.
Yeah, there was a
like,
lot of that
what
in
he
this,
did in the
to be
scene
honest.
was such a Walter White thing to do.
Yeah, it very much was, which was really fucking cool, because I think it shows that, I mean, he's learned a lot from him, you see in the show, but also I suppose he had a lot of time to dwell on that as well. Seeing like he was imprisoned and whatever because Walter was smarter than he was and always had the upper hand and always controlled him. So I suppose Jesse learned from that and sort of, you know, wanted to do what he did and be a bit more like him. And yeah, you really see that in that scene. It really is such a Walter thing. It was great.
Because especially that moment he's dueling him, and I'm sitting there like, Jesse, why the fuck are you dueling him? Like, this guy's gonna fucking kill you. What are you doing, man? But I'd already forgotten that Jesse had 2 guns. And he specifically was showing him like his one gun and everything like that, and he just had behind his arm, hiding under his jacket, this second gun that he used to shoot him, and then he goes around the room and he kills the redhead guy, and then the other guy's too fucking scared of him, and they just kind of run away. He takes all their IDs, and yeah, that whole thing was just Walter White all over it.
Yeah, it was really cool.
What did that mean for Jesse's character though? Like, because yeah, it's an internal redemption, but it's not a good guy redemption, right? Like, sure, Jesse was always like the I guess the good guy of the two. But I guess he's still a bad guy, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, he's a good person. But I guess... I don't know, I guess he just learned...
He was always controlled, right? He was always doing whatever happened to him sort of happened. And
yeah.
He's just felt like he was creating his own destiny now.
Yeah, and I think that seeing him learn from Walter, but not... He doesn't have to become... like Walter was, where Walter was a very selfish person. He was very arrogant as well, and he was sort of consumed by his pride. Jesse's not like that. He's still a good person, and although he's like learned from him, you can see that it doesn't mean he has to become the same way that Walter did, and he still ends up, you know, having that redemption as well. And it was just, I guess it was just a nice, I don't know, a nice little thing. I don't know what to call it.
Nice little thing.
Nice little thing. That's a technical term used by us film connoisseurs.
That is straight up film connoisseuring right there.
It is.
So after he's wins the duel, he gets the money, and he leaves. He blows up the whole thing, and that was like the moment I felt like he was kind of destroying everything. He was destroying the trauma that was behind him. He was destroying the past. That's what it felt like to me. Like that moment he's moving on, right?
Yeah, I agree. It also felt very Walter White as well, because Walter likes to do things very overkill, and it felt very similar. Like, I imagine Walter also would have blown up the building, but probably more for the sake of it than anything else. Whereas
And, like,
Jesse's was
the
more
enjoyment of
symbolic. Yeah. Whereas Jesse did it sort of as a symbol to like, yeah, sort of wipe that away and be able to move forward. It also looked really cool. So there's that too.
Yeah, exactly. There's oh no, I'm not going to skip to that yet. No, well, the next scene, because the next part after he blows it up is all of a sudden, and they just have they hold this shot, so he blows it up and the past is gone, he's now going to move on, right? Like that's you sort of climax the movie, and then you see Jesse sort of like come out of this, he's in a bath, and he just kind of head comes out under the water. And that's another one of those. And a lot of, I mean, we just talked about it in the last cinema room with Joker. It's like, water's a very symbolic thing. Well, the Joker was blood, but it's like a sort of, you know, a baptism. Mm-hmm. You know, Joker is a baptism by blood. This is sort of a washing away of the past, washing away of the past sins, like of a new Jesse. Even though it's actually in a flashback, and he's in a hotel, and it's not even, you know, Jesse now, but that's what it's like alluding to, that he's washed away the past. And he moves out. He's on the phone in a hotel, and he gets out of his room, and he kind of walks up, and he just knocks on this door, and he just stands there waiting. And they kind of hold the shot for a while, and you know this is when they're going to reveal Walter White comes out. And then they walked down the hallway, and it felt like they could have just had Walter at the diner, right? But they made it a real entrance. And that, again, is a very Walter White ego thing. It's almost like Vince Gilligan harnesses his own Walter White to show Walter White. Like, it's got to be an entrance. It's got to be very, like, important and narcissistic in the way that, like, he's walking down the hallway and he's revealing himself. And but it's an incredible scene to see them together and to see Bryan Cranston as Walter White again. It's so cool. And you see the van again, or the
RV.
The RV. Yeah, it's, I don't know, it was just a special scene, man.
Yeah, it really was. It was really nice. Yeah, seeing the RV, seeing them together again. You've got like the tape they put over the bullet holes and everything. It just felt like Breaking Bad, like that. Like, I don't know, just like a scene from season 2. Like, it felt just like it.
And it's just, and it's really old really Jesse. Nice. It's also old Jesse, where it's just like lazily and unapologetically just getting all this food and messing everything up, and then he just looks at the food and he's so happy with his plate and he just goes, bitch. You know, he just, it's back when he was careless and he didn't think he was smart. And so you see that, man, he fucking was not smart back then. He was very obvious and flaunting the money and being very loud and boisterous, and not at all like the Jesse that he became. And Walter's sitting there, and it's almost like old Jesse looking at what he's going to be like, because Walter's in there telling him like what he could be. Walter always did see in Jesse what Jesse could become. That was the one thing, and Jesse just took so long to become it, and to even realize who he could be. It was, and you know, it took us so long that it was too late, really, right? Like, because they ended up betraying each other.
Yeah, it was interesting because it shows Walter always did care about Jesse. But
it's obvious, like that's how it ended.
I think it's just that Walter doesn't have any empathy for anybody. I think that's pretty clear. He's a bit of a fucking sociopath for the entirety of the show, but he still cares about people. Like, he cares about his family and he cares about Jesse. He just cares about himself more. And it was nice to see that final moment where they're just talking to each other. And I mean, Bryan Cranston is performing like Walter White perfectly. It feels like you've got Walt and Jesse together again, and that was great. And you've just got this, you know, the conversation is just so normal, but it's like just this exchange that, I don't know, it was just such a nice send off to these characters, in a really it was a very just a normal Breaking Bad scene, but it just felt really special.
It did feel special. You know, to look back on that and really see, you know, what they used to be like, but you know what they became, and the changes all these characters made. I don't know. I fucking loved it. It was great, and that's what leads us to we cut to, it's a US-Canada border, 4 miles, and this truck's driving up, and you're like, okay, they're in Alaska. You see an Alaskan license plate, and Jesse's going to start his new life in Alaska, and he's made it out safe. He's washed away the past. He's overcome the trauma, and he can finally let go. He has nothing left back then. He has nothing left of what that life was. He has no one. Jane was that the name of his girlfriend?
Yep.
What was her name?
Yeah, Jane.
Yeah, Jane. Walter's gone, and all the people that tormented him are dead, and all that's left is, to sort of move on. He hands a letter to the guy, which I had to look up, was to the son of the girl he was dating near the end of the show.
Andrea was the girl. Brock is the son.
Andrea was the girl. Brock, yeah. So there's a letter to Brock, and supposedly they had the letter being read originally, and Aaron Paul was fighting for it to be in the show, but Vince Gilligan refused to put it in. He's like, no, it's not going in. He's like, it's not about that. It doesn't matter. He felt, I think it was too obvious, and it wasn't Breaking Bad enough. Like, it would have been too sappy, and
yeah,
he's like, he doesn't want Breaking Bad to be that.
Yeah. It would have been Stranger Things 3, and we don't want that.
Yeah, exactly. No, we don't want that. He saw Stranger Things 3, and he's like, nah.
See, Jesse tried to move to Alaska, and he ended up in Hawkins, and he was like, the fuck, man? We haven't gone anywhere. Yeah. And he's like, no, exactly. Sorry, this is just what I do. We're always here.
But then he gets in his new car, and he gets tested on like his new life, and Jesse has everything memorized. He's not being careless and boisterous and loud and obnoxious like he was in that scene with Walter. He is cool, calm, collected, well researched, knows exactly what he needs to do to stay safe, to know his new life, and to move on. And he gets in the car and he drives off, and then they have this flashback to Jane. When they're driving in the car together, and because he looks over in his car, then you see Jane, and you realize it's this flashback, and then they have the scene on the side of the road, and he's talking about them being together, and like sort of how the universe just sort of just go with the way things happen, and I'm trying to remember the exact line.
It was something like
hang on 1 second. I'm listening to it now.
Okay.
It's better to make the decision for yourself. Hang on, sir. I've gone where the universe takes me my whole life. It's better to make those decisions for yourself.
Yeah.
Great scene, because it encapsulates everything that just happened, right? And what Jesse ended up doing. And then they explain it in that flashback. And then you have Jesse driving off into the distance, into the Alaskan frontier, looking satisfied, and then it says El Camino, and the credits roll. Now, here's where I would change things.
Okay.
You swap Mike's flashback and Jane's flashback.
Okay.
You open with the Jane thing, because it pulls you back in the heartstrings with Jesse and who his character was. And we already know Jesse's been pulled along by other people. Gone whatever's happened to him, like, that's where his kind of character ends up going. But this whole thing was about him standing up for himself, making his own decisions. It would have been cool to establish that idea at the start. That should have been the opening. Her saying, it's I've gone with the universe takes my whole life, it's better to make those decisions for yourself, and that's him doing that. That's what the movie is. And then at the end, it's a callback to, it's like, what? So he's in Alaska, like, is that important? And then it flashes back to that Mike thing of like, what do you do if you get out? Well, what would you do if you were me? Go to Alaska. I think that should have been the end. It's not like Mike's not an important character.
Yeah, I think I agree with the Jane flashback being at the beginning. I think that would have made more sense. But with that Alaska flashback scene, that would be really... Where would you put it? Would you put it before he arrives in Alaska?
Yes. So not like as he's driving away. Okay. So you go from like... I guess you go from the Walter White flashback.
Straight into another flashback. Would that be weird?
Yeah, well, maybe you just have him driving. Or maybe you just put it like before he gets in the car, like... after the guy drives off and he hasn't gotten into the car yet, and then it flashes back to the Alaska flashback, and then it goes to him in the car for the first time, and he's driving off. Yeah, and even still have him see Jane in the car like he did, and it flashes back to Jane, It's the same flashback, but at the opening of the movie, it's just them on the side of the road. It's not them in the car. And then a flashback, he looks over at Jane's in the car, and then it cuts back to him, and it's him by himself. So I kind of mix it around a bit. So you kind of full circle the Jane thing. You have the Mike thing at the end. But yeah, I just think the Jane thing should have been the start.
Yeah, I think that makes sense at the start because it does, like you said, it encapsulates the events of the movie.
Rather than like being like underlining it after the fact.
Yeah.
So like, by the way, this is what happened.
Yeah.
Like it's like, yeah, we know, we just saw it.
It'd be good to establish it to begin with, and then you see Jesse really take control of his life and do, almost what Jane said, and then, I think I agree. I think that would have worked at the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, I fucking loved it. Loved the movie.
Yeah.
Loved El Camino. I don't really have much else to say about it, to be totally honest. We've broken down the whole movie. It's not because not a lot happens in it. It's very Breaking Bad. Each scene, though it's 2 hours, each scene's very slow paced and long and tension building. There's a lot of symbolism in it. There's a lot of great themes in it. It's exactly what I wanted. It wasn't any more than I wanted it to be, and it wasn't any less than I wanted it to be. It was Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
The next episode.
Yeah, it was exactly right, and it doesn't diminish the show. I think it enhances it. It gives it more to it, and I like that.
It's just the next piece of the show. It doesn't even. Yeah. It just feels like it's the next piece of the show. It doesn't diminish or add necessarily. It's just like, well, it's the proper ending. To me, this is the real ending of the show. It's
almost like the epilogue type thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's the epilogue to Breaking Bad. Exactly right.
Yeah,
exactly right. Yeah,
it works really well.
Phenomenal. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is our spoiler cast for El Camino, Breaking Bad movie. We hope you enjoyed it.
I hope so.
The next few cinema rooms won't be anything necessarily brand new, just so people know, because I'm going to be away for 6 weeks, but we're not going to miss a single podcast. Or if we will, we're going to fill... Your cinema room will take the place of some of the podcasts, because we can pre-record a bunch of them, so... I won't tell you exactly what movies are going to come out, but there's going to be some extra cinema rooms over the next 2 months or a month and a half or so. And it won't be brand new stuff because I'll be gone and not being able to record podcasts or even see movies or play games or anything like that. But yeah, when I get back, we'll cover the new stuff, which will be like, I get back when Star Wars comes out, like the week before Star Wars comes out.
When does Star Wars come out?
20th of December.
Oh, okay.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Do you want to wrap this up, James?
I do. All right. Thanks, everybody, so much for joining us. Thank you to our Patreon producers, King Richard III, Smexy Dork, Elsko91, HBars12, I Got Big Shoes, Seth, and Josh DeVilliers. We appreciate you all a lot. If you're listening on podcast services or on YouTube, you can get this podcast a week early access over on patreon.com/as always for just $1 or more, depending on how much you want to give. So consider checking that out. You also get exclusive access to the Clubhouse podcast, which is the greatest podcast. You don't want to miss it. So go over there, patreon.com/as always, and check it out. And to thank everybody pledging $5 or more, we have got King Richard III, Smexy Dork, Elsko91, HBars12, I Got Big Shoes, Seth, Josh DeVilliers, Ballsack47, Damian, Billy the Team Tynamite, Captain Robertson, Tman or Travis, SuperTuberEddie, Baby Boy, KEMOSABE Gamer, Casey Wood, Pink Flame 313, Adam Sundling, Alfie Rowsell, Jamie Brown, Jesper Olsen, Lumistrad, DIDDLOTIC, Marriage380, Lives in a Society, The Creed, Fat Fuck Cuck, Brendon Overlord, RAVJAI, Ikraik, Oscar, Benedict Parker Returns, Jimli, James and Lad, Connor Durose Bully in the Alley, Zahir the FAT Gamer, Max H, Gene, Zeek Collins Lives in a Society, Son of a Bitch Ogeaidogo, George, Noah Watts, FuriousCoco, Nick Miller, TheACMJS, Travanoski, McZed, Kassassin, Kyle, S. Shores, Marcus Blackburn, Emil Katborg, Josh Amora, Ginko Swag, Mas the Bass, Ashton the Lad, Amir the Synth Potato, Yazen, Joe the Sexy Boi Smith, Joe aka Found Scarab, Iron Man's for the Dads, Deraday, Alfie Robert, Brian Ford, Casper, Fishy, and Andrew Martinez. Thank you all so much. You're all bloody fantastic. We'll see you next time for the next episode of Cinema Room and whatever podcasts come down the line. You know the drill by now. And that's it. We'll see you later on.
Amazing. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
See you later, boys.
Bye.
Bye.